The boy walking in the rain looking like he's heartbroken is Ayato, not actually because he got rejected by his crush 18 times, but because the rain reminds him of a sad event that happened in his past. No matter how much the rain falls, it still cannot fill the emptiness in his heart. When Ayato arrives at a fork in the road, space begins to shift. A boy runs past him, but he pretends not to see anything and keeps walking. Behind him are two kids who look like protagonists, one with blue hair and one with red hair. Ayato then boards a train. Suddenly, a man rushes to the front of the car, muttering that he has found something and wants to change the rotten world he lives in. His hand starts to catch fire, scaring everyone around him. It accidentally catches the attention of the two kids and Ayato. At the scene where the fire-wielding madman is, there's a girl who couldn't escape in time. He asks her if she believes Divine Gate exists. Seeing the girl confused and unsure whether this guy is on drugs or not, the fire user starts to enlighten her. In ancient times, when the three worlds merged into one, they granted humans 6 supernatural powers. Since then, those who truly use them have been summoned by Divine Gate, the place where every wish becomes reality. He insists he isn't on drugs and that this is a fairy tale. In short, this guy wants those without powers to worship people with powers like him. A man who tries to run is immediately turned into ashes. The fire user kills without blinking and even smiles because he thinks it's the right thing to do. Just as he's about to strike the girl, Ayato steps forward. It's clear that he also has powers in his hand. The fire user calls him a vigilante and shoots fire at him, but Ayato blocks it with water. When the fire user charges in to attack, Ayato turns the water in his hand into a blade and slashes the madman across the stomach. At that moment, the two kids appear. The blue-haired girl identifies herself as someone from the World Council and says she wants to arrest Ayato, but before she can act, an announcement rings out. Nontron has entered the initial phase of zone creation. A virtual battlefield is formed for Ayato and the two kids, but Ayato doesn't fight and decides to leave. The red-haired boy warns Ayato that if he leaves things like this and walks away, he'll be violating a law called the Driver Ownership Law. Ayato calmly replies that he doesn't have a driver. However, the blue-haired girl tells the red-haired one to take care of the fire user first since he's severely injured. At this point, we learn the reason Ayato hates walking in the rain. It's related to the death of his parents. The mysterious boy reappears in front of Ayato and warns him that Divine Gate has always appeared before him, yet he never knew how to seize it. At the World Council Academy, the incident on the train has been reported to the whole school. The two kids are accidentally praised by everyone for catching the criminal. Both rush into the elevator, also wondering about Ayato's identity. As soon as they get out of the elevator, the blue-haired girl challenges the red-haired boy to a race. The red-haired boy still doesn't believe that Ayato doesn't possess a driver, while the blue-haired girl only sensed a killing gaze from Ayato. They then run to a stadium, where a spirit beast named Bon appears. It checks the security footage of the train incident. Upon reviewing the video, the blue-haired girl senses pain in Ayato's eyes and thinks he has seen Divine Gate. However, the red-haired boy still dismisses it as nonsense and fantasy. At this point, we learn the red-haired boy is Akane and the blue-haired girl is Midori. Midori believes Akane is lying to himself because if he didn't believe in Divine Gate, why would he have joined this place in the first place? At the same time, at the council, it's revealed that the attacker was a demon who came to the human world to sign a job contract 2 years ago. He's also a vigilante. The reason for his assault may be related to a psychological disorder caused by his inability to adapt to the human environment. The white-haired person assigns a girl named Triss to determine the punishment for him based on what he has done. As for Ayato, they still haven't identified him. The white-haired person wants to find and recruit him into the academy. Most people dislike the killing intent that Ayato exudes, but the white-haired person reassures them, so everyone agrees to go along with it. At the school Ayato is attending, his cold personality means even his food has to be cold. Putting ice into ramen is truly beyond saving. Looking around, it's clear that Ayato is isolated at school. There's a rumor that he was the one who killed his own parents. People base their judgment on baseless claims and label Ayato as a monster. Ayato is someone who hates the rain, but he wishes for the rain to get heavier and heavier. He wants it to turn into a flood that will sweep everything away. But it still can't extinguish the fire of hatred burning inside him. Back at the academy, Akane and Midori go to meet their master. Akane speaks arrogantly and ends up getting punished by his master. Both of them were called in because of the matter concerning Ayato. Akane's master reveals that Ayato will be their teammate in the future. The academy had sent him a recruitment letter, but he rejected it, so the two of them are now tasked with persuading Ayato to join the academy. Since the water spirit has already made a move, they need to hurry. Upon hearing Ayato's name, Akane feels that it sounds familiar. According to his master, 4 years ago, Ayato stirred up the media when he murdered his own parents. As for Ayato, he meets the water spirit. This isn't the first time she's come here. Just like the previous invitations, his answer is still no. However, the water spirit believes she can save him, so she wants him to come to the academy and try it once. After that, Ayato goes to meet Arthur, the headmaster of the academy. Arthur gets straight to the point and gives Ayato a device called a driver. This driver is specially designed just for him. According to Arthur, Ayato's power is attracting even greater forces to converge in one place. If he encounters strong enemies without a driver to support him, it will be difficult for him to stay alive. But Ayato refuses and leaves. Arthur says that this is the truth, and if Ayato wants to know that truth, he should come back to see him. Upon leaving the room, Ayato meets Akane and Midori again. Of course, they're there to recruit him to the academy. We also learn that at the academy, students are called vigilantes instead of just students. Midori invites Ayato to tour the academy, but Akane gets straight to the point. Either Ayato joins or he doesn't. Ayato responds vaguely and walks away. Midori brings up Divine Gate and is sure that Ayato has seen it. Ayato confirms that he has seen it many times, but he has no wish to make that would compel him to reach out to it. At that moment, Akane's loud mouth kicks in again. He says he's heard about Ayato's case, but he doesn't care whether it's true or not. He just wants to know what kind of person Ayato really is. In response to that blunt remark, Ayato says directly that he was the one who acted against his parents, then walks away. The heavy rain continues to fall. The mysterious boy from before appears again. Ayato asks what he wants, but the boy only smiles. He knows that Ayato is a liar. Ayato says he killed them, but that's not true. He can't eat hot food because his parents never cooked for him. On the outside he appears cold, but on the inside he's extremely deprived. How does the boy know? Because he witnessed everything. 4 years ago, Ayato truly had a family, but his parents loved his younger brother more than him. It wasn't just typical favoritism. His parents built a separate storage room just to isolate Ayato from the rest of the family. His meals were nothing but soup and bread, no different from being in prison. Ayato lived his lonely days like that. One stormy day, his food was eaten by a stray dog. He didn't mind and gave it away. Suddenly, his younger brother appeared. He knew that Ayato wanted to scream. He knew Ayato wanted to kill those two people. He could feel the deep coldness inside Ayato's heart. He could save Ayato, but he didn't want to. He wanted Ayato to drown in despair, and the boy saw everything. Meanwhile, Arthur has touched Divine Gate, and when he steps through it, the world on the other side is nothing but apocalypse. The blazing red fire brings us to the story of Akane. When he was little, he loved watching his father train. The fire from his father spread warmth to him. That very fire from his father was the light that helped the young Akane find his own path, the path his late father was never able to walk. Waking up from a dream, Akane meets Midori and the water spirit again. The water spirit wants to splash him with water to wake him up, but he gets annoyed and walks away. Ayato's words from that day still bother him, very simply because Akane considers family everything, while Ayato disregards it. Moreover, the two are fire and water, fundamentally incompatible. At the headmaster's office, Arthur meets a clown-like man named Loki, who makes Arthur a cup of coffee. He came because he heard Arthur is about to recruit more members for the academy. Whatever Arthur is interested in, Loki takes interest in too. After saying that, he leaves. Meanwhile, Ayato often feeds stray animals with bread and milk. At that moment, the mysterious boy appears again, continuing to strike at Ayato's fears. Bread and milk are things that bring back his painful past. The boy says that whatever belongs to the past, no matter what you do, it cannot be changed. As the boy leaves, the water spirits group comes to find Ayato again. Before he can say anything, Midori cuts in to invite him to the academy. She notices that the cats really like Ayato, but he just assumes they stick around because he feeds them. Akane's loud mouth kicks in again, saying that if Ayato didn't like the cats, he wouldn't feed them, he only feeds them because he likes them. He argues that when someone betrays the expectations of their own heart, it's 100 times worse. But the water spirit doesn't see it as betrayal. Everyone has a kind side. But that doesn't mean they can always be good. She believes no one can always control themselves, let alone when they're just a child. Seeing all these strangers coming to his place to invite him, Ayato asks if going there will really change anything. Midori wonders what he wants to change, but he stays silent, which worries her a lot because she's been through something similar herself. Ayato still doesn't respond, making Akane lose his temper and storm off. Bon appears and points out that Akane's temper will be his weakness. Looking around, Akane finally notices that a rundown place like this still exists in this city. He thought the council had restructured everything. The reason he joined the academy is because of his late father, who was praised as the saint's genius and had power greater than the council. But one day on a mission, he died. The council claimed it was a laboratory accident, but Akane doesn't believe that. He's determined to uncover the truth the council is hiding. Back to Ayato, Midori hopes he'll understand Akane, a person who's lost a father he admired can't easily control himself. Ayato thinks it's because he killed his parents, but Midori doesn't believe he did it. The water spirit sympathizes with Ayato's suffering and says she'll see him next time before leaving with Midori. The mysterious boy shows up again. It's hard to accept, but he has to say it. He sees that Akane's curious nature is just like Ayato's, so Ayato should go after him. Following Akane might help him or it might not, but it'll definitely change something. If he stays silent, then nothing will ever change. As for Akane, while walking around the slums, a beggar child comes up to ask for money. He's about to give some, but then remembers his own lecture to Ayato earlier and stops. He asks where the boy's parents are, and the boy says they're busy. When Ayato arrives, the kid ignores Akane and runs straight to him. Turns out they know each other because Ayato often brings him food. Today, Ayato didn't bring any, so he says he'll take the kid out to eat. Akane thinks Ayato just enjoys the feeling of doing that, which is why he does it. This time, Ayato doesn't stay silent and replies, "Didn't you just try to do the same thing?" His own logic slapped back at him. Akane changes the subject and asks why the kid's parents let him beg instead of taking care of him. He hasn't seen life yet, so he doesn't understand the nature of the world. Every home, every flower, every life is different. If everyone were happy and well off, Batman wouldn't be free every night to go around punching criminals. Akane still refuses to listen and says he'll go find the kid's parents. Ayato says, "And what next? Make them send him to school for 12 years just so he ends up heartbroken over some girl." Their war of words is temporarily halted when a patrol driver starts roaming the neighborhood. Suddenly, Loki begins messing with a robot, which unexpectedly switches to combat mode and starts attacking everyone nearby. Akane contacts the council, but they claim that there's no malfunctioning driver at the moment. Only after you sent them the video did they send reinforcements. Out of fear, the beggar child ran into a house, but the driver sensed movement and attacked, trapping the child under the rubble. At that moment, the father hobbled onto the scene. He wanted to save his child, but his leg wouldn't let him. Akane just stood there shouting at him to save his son. Later, the council said the area had been reconstructed, and then a battle arena appeared. Midori also arrived to assist. Akane told Ayato to leave and put out the fire first, then handed him the driver. Ayato took it and ran off. At that moment, Akane and Midori activated their own drivers. Midori's was a spear, and Akane's was a pair of gloves. Outside, Ayato also used his driver a sword. With just one slash, he created a rainstorm to extinguish the fire. After dealing with the robot, Akane and Midori came out to rescue the boy. It's unclear if Akane had something wrong with his eyes, but he ran over to question the boy's father on why he didn't save his son. Ayato had to knock some sense into him. That crippled leg was the result of a gas explosion, which had caused the father to develop a phobia of fire and unconscious fear. Though he was aware he needed to save his son, that unconscious fear overwhelmed him, rendering him unable to act. Ayato understood this well because he had been taught about it when he was young. Hearing his son's voice snapped the father out of it. He tried to crawl toward his child, but the child now feared his father because of the incident. The father repeatedly apologized. Seeing this, a neuron or two finally fired in Akane's brain. He advised the boy to approach his father. If he let fear win now, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Ayato also encouraged the boy, and the child ran toward his father. The mysterious boy reappeared beside Ayato and began to dismantle his reasoning. A person with good awareness isn't necessarily a good person, because in moments of unconsciousness, they can still do bad things. The boy knew Ayato's awareness was pure, but it had long been tainted by those who abandoned him. He revealed that in that family, it wasn't just Ayato who was betrayed, his younger brother was too. Ayato then recalled that rainy day when all he heard were the screams of his parents. By the time he got there, they were already dead, and his younger brother was standing in the rain, letting the blood wash off. His face was completely emotionless as he looked at Ayato, said goodbye, and walked away. Ayato ran after him, and when he grabbed his brother's hand, he saw Divine Gate. In the end, he still couldn't hold on to his brother. Back in the present, Ayato decided to join the academy. Arthur was overjoyed to receive two good news at once. First, Ayato had arrived at the academy. Second, he had found the key to open Divine Gate, which would also lead them there. Everyone was thrilled because each of them had some unresolved mystery. After the three of them left, Arthur called Loki and another man named Oz. Oz seemed to have the ability to read thoughts, so he already knew about the key to Divine Gate. Oz was certain that the council would oppose this, but Arthur said he wasn't proposing it was unnoticed. Whether they opposed it or not, he would still take action. Loki went along with Arthur, while Oz wasn't so sure. However, after seeing Arthur's determined expression, Oz agreed to follow him and promised to help him at all costs. Arthur then left to organize a meeting. Elsewhere, Midori was training harder than usual. Ayato and the mysterious boy watched from afar. The boy revealed that Midori was struggling between her unconscious and conscious mind. In her heart, she only wanted to become stronger. She kept attacking even after the time was up, only stopping when a teacher appeared. That evening, the academy held a welcome party for Ayato. Midori brought him food, but he refused because he couldn't eat hot food. His heart always rejected warmth. It was because he feared that once he understood kindness and comfort, he wouldn't be able to resist craving it again. At that moment, a classmate accidentally broke a glass of water, interrupting Ayato's thoughts. Later, that same girl approached him and asked why he was looking for Divine Gate. Ayato didn't want to answer, but Midori joined the conversation. When the party ended, only Midori and Akane stayed behind to clean up, since Midori had played rock, paper, scissors and said that whoever lost would stay and clean up. Only Midori lost, so Akane had to stay and help her. He wondered why she always ran so hard and wanted to be first. That was when Midori began to tell her story. When she was a child, Midori had a very close friend, and the two of them would often go to summer festivals together. They had also heard stories about the sacred gate. At that time, Midori didn't have anything she wanted to wish for, but her friend only wished that their friendship would last forever. Midori promised her friend that too. Yet, Midori had no idea that just one promise would blind her heart. As they grew up, Midori and her friend remained close. At the beginning of the school year, Midori was still very shy, but gradually she made more friends, and the distance between her and her childhood friend slowly began to grow. Then, during that year's summer festival, Midori and her new group of friends made plans to go together, and she also wanted to invite her old friend. While walking home together, Midori invited her, but her friend didn't want to meet anyone else besides Midori. She only wanted Midori and wanted to be number one in her heart. The friend reminded her of the promise they had made as children. Midori hesitated, disappointing her friend, who then walked away. That night, Midori texted her to apologize, but her friend said she wouldn't go to the summer festival. She said she would go to the place to make her wish. When Midori asked where, there was no reply. And so, the day of the festival arrived. While enjoying the event, Midori heard news of a disappearance on the nearby mountain. Sensing something was wrong, she ran there. The area was surrounded by police. Midori forced her way in and reached the edge of a cliff, and then a light appeared behind the mountain. It wasn't the sun, it was the sacred gate that had appeared. Midori saw it just before fainting. Since that day, she never saw her friend again, and the reason Midori had to find the sacred gate was because she believed her friend was on the other side of it. Ayato also overheard Midori's story. Meanwhile, on Arthur's side, the meeting was held. After announcing the time for the sacred gate search, most agreed with him, so the meeting ended quickly. The next morning, Ayato began his training. The mysterious boy appeared again to target Ayato's psychology. He believed Ayato was hesitating in making his wish. If Ayato met his younger brother, he wouldn't know what to do. Ayato didn't want to find the sacred gate, but the boy disagreed. If he didn't want to find it, why did he come to the academy? Midori and Akane watched from afar, thinking Ayato was a weirdo talking to himself. Midori then dragged Akane to the library to learn about Ayato's case, but when they typed in his name, the security system activated and denied further access. Over where Arthur was, he also received the notification, but he was more focused on the newest prototype of the automated driver that was in development. All members of the council were present to observe, though one person hadn't shown up in days. Arthur didn't care and let the guy do whatever he wanted. After finishing his training, Ayato returned home to prepare for school. Today, there was still a surveillance drone following him. The person monitoring Ayato was a member of the council, who believed Ayato had killed his father and was trying to find proof to arrest him. When he arrived at school, Midori and Akane asked Ayato if he had any connection with the council. Ayato asked why they were investigating him. Although Akane had a foul mouth, he was actually kind-hearted. He only wanted to help Ayato in some way, so he tried to dig into Ayato's past. Midori introduced Ayato to the school's social media platform, where he could write anything he liked and post it. Of course, Ayato had no interest and walked away. The two hurried after him. At that moment, Midori received a message from someone named Blue Stray Cat, who was known to have a way to access the council's classified information. Akane suspected it was a hacker, but Midori still clicked to see the details. Only a few people could access confidential information, so they needed to obtain that person's access card, and so the two of them went to the water spirit's room to search. After a while, they managed to find it just as the water spirit returned. Out of options, Midori had to take out her favorite cake to lure the water spirit, and while she distracted him, Akane managed to snatch the access card. After using it, they were able to access information about Ayato. While digging around, they were shocked to discover that Ayato's case was connected to the Blue Christmas incident. 2 years ago, 2 armed murderers had killed 666 innocent people, and the suspects had still not been caught. One witness testified that one of the killers was a blonde-haired boy wielding a knife made of water. Ayato's name appeared on the suspect list, but there was no evidence. Not only was he suspected of killing his parents, but also accused in a mass murder case. His luck really couldn't be worse. Just as Midori tried to access more data, it required a higher level of clearance. At that moment, the two were discovered. Akane realized the person was Biru, a member of Arthur's team. Meanwhile, Ayato received another message from the blue stray cat, who said he knew who Ayato really was and wanted Blue Christmas to happen again. Ayato followed the location to find him. Back to the Blue Christmas incident, it happened on a Christmas night like any other. Suddenly, an entire shopping center was dyed blue, and Ayato appeared from above. When a guard approached, Ayato slashed him dead with a single swing. Then, Ayato began a killing spree. He used ice to block off everyone's escape, and while he was lost in the bloodlust, one person fearlessly walked toward him. That boy admired how Ayato killed without blinking. Ayato then slashed the boy's mouth and took him as a comrade. The two continued the massacre. At the time, Biru and his father were also present. When Ayato noticed them, Biru's father sacrificed himself to save his son. Luckily, or perhaps unluckily, Arthur arrived in time to save the survivors. Back to the present, Biru had only identified Ayato, while he still hadn't found the other suspect. He was certain the blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy was Ayato, but Akane didn't believe Ayato was the culprit due to the lack of evidence. Biru asked the two to help him uncover the truth, but Akane only wanted to help prove Ayato's innocence. Biru checked the surveillance cameras, but the feed had been cut. Midori, however, knew Ayato's location through his phone. They found him at the ruins of the shopping center where Blue Christmas had happened. Meanwhile, Ayato met the blue stray cat. The man was thrilled to see Ayato again, but Ayato didn't remember who he was. The man explained that after being captured, he had been experimented on many times, but he waited for the day Ayato would reappear. He felt Ayato had changed a lot. His eyes shone. His aura was gentle, not the cold and emotionless version he used to be. Just then, Biru arrived. He recognized the man as the saint's genius, Dinger. Midori also realized he was the blue stray cat who had messaged her. Knowing Dinger had information, Biru insisted on forcing him to talk. Dinger summoned a swarm of drivers, mocking them for daring to oppose the saint's genius. Biru was surrounded and had to ask Akane's group for help. The four of them split up to handle the situation. Ayato rushed in to fight Dinger. After a few sword clashes, Dinger realized this wasn't the Ayato he once knew. He felt like he had mistaken his lover and lost interest in playing. Dinger then summoned the prototype driver to fight Ayato. Since it was still in testing, it had many malfunctions. Ayato easily slashed its control mask to disable it. Dinger took the opportunity to flee and called Ayato number 2. Biru wanted Ayato to confess the truth about Blue Christmas. Ayato was about to claim responsibility, but Akane cut in, "If you didn't do it, don't take the blame." At that moment, the driver reactivated. After scanning its surroundings, it recognized Ayato as its master. Midori then suggested taking a picture of Ayato and the new member to post on social media. As soon as it was uploaded, the water spirit immediately liked the post. And this time, Ayato smiled. From afar, Ayato's younger brother had been watching it all. In the days that followed, Ayato's group was taken to an abandoned zone for training. According to Bon, it was a place the council couldn't monitor. When they arrived, the area was so desolate that wild grass had grown everywhere. Akane wondered if this was a training session. Why was there no supervision? At that moment, a boy named Jinji also arrived and told Akane that if he didn't like it, he could just go home, which led to the two of them arguing again. Shortly after, Jinji's team arrived too. There was Hikari, and this was Yukari. Yukari seemed quite interested in Ayato. Once both teams had gathered, they headed into the abandoned area. There, the group encountered a person wearing a horse mask. Thinking it was a mistake, they ignored her. But when she said he was their supervisor, they finally stopped. She took off his mask and introduced herself as Betty from Arthur's team. Gingy, eager to start training, asked Biddy to begin right away, so she gave them a mission on the spot. The group split into 2 teams to find their way to the rendezvous point she designated. They then began splitting up. As they moved into the forest, they encountered Biru and another person. This was their first challenge. The man was named Pelu, and they had to defeat him in a one-on-one match. A sumo ring was set up, and the group had to wrestle Pelu to move on. Fired up, Akane took off her shirt and rushed in to fight. Seeing both of them shirtless and fired up, Midori thought they'd soon get along. Boys become friends after a good fight. She glanced at Ayato and saw that he was also taking off his shirt, getting ready to fight. In round 2, Ayato's team had to go through a true or false question challenge. The question was, if Mr. Virus and a cannon play rock, paper, scissors, what would he choose? Akane picked rock and immediately got knocked into the mud. Ayato answered correctly. Mr. Virus wouldn't throw out anything at all. While washing his face, Akane looked at the bracelet his father had given him. He had always been chasing the traces of that flame, no matter how much time passed. That burning image was engraved deeply in his memory. A snapping sound behind him startled Akane into turning around. The girl also panicked and fell onto a tree, and in her rush Akane too fell into the river. Despite his own situation, he first asked the girl if she was okay. Seeing that the girl laughed, the two then sat and talked. When she saw the necklace, the girl knew Akane cherished it deeply, of course because it was a memento from his father. The girl gave Akane a choice between this necklace and his friends. What would he choose? Akane felt that was an unfair comparison. The girl was envious of Akane because he had something precious to protect. At that moment, Akane and Ayato arrived together, and the girl beside Akane suddenly disappeared. She and a group had been hiding in the bushes to observe Ayato's group. Meanwhile, the council was also monitoring Ayato's group. Some members weren't pleased with Arthur's training methods, saying it looked more like a play session than actual training. When the sun had set, Ayato's group reached the rendezvous point. Gingy's team arrived shortly after, but he invited everyone to take a bath first. Seeing Akane had something on her mind, Ayato asked about it, told him about his encounter with the mysterious girl in the forest. After resting, everyone gathered for a meeting. They didn't understand the meaning of this training either, and even Betty didn't know. She relayed Arthur's words, "Every choice comes with its consequences." Then she gave another mission to both teams this time. They had to find their way to a vehicle gas station at night. Along the way, they encountered a group of beastmen. One of them transformed into a goat and charged at them. Midori realized these creatures were called second beings who sought power by overcoming species boundaries to reach the sacred gate. Normally, according to Midori, they weren't this aggressive. But since their mission was to reach the gas station, they chose to retreat. On the way, Akane was separated from the group by the girl from the forest. Nearing the gas station, Ayato realized Akane was missing, so he and Midori turned back to look for him. In the council's meeting, Triss suggested calling for reinforcements, but Arthur said that since Betty was there was nothing to worry about. Triss remained concerned, afraid the kids wouldn't hold out until Betty arrived. Oz and Loki also came to observe. Meanwhile, Akane was still on the defensive. He didn't want to attack others without a reason. The girl was aiming for his necklace. She then transformed into a beast form and attacked again. Fortunately, Ayato and Midori arrived to help, but the girl's group had already surrounded all three of them. Ayato told Akane that if he had anything to say, he should say it before it became something that could no longer be said. Akane then tried to strike up a conversation with the girl. He wanted to understand her better, so he could help her, but the girl didn't care and knocked him down. She believed he would never understand people like her. Just as she was about to attack Akane to steal his necklace, Betty's group arrived to resolve the situation. They ruthlessly eliminated the second group, which deeply shocked Akane. Loki realized that Arthur had chosen to reach the sacred gate through a path of blood. All Akane could do now was watch the girl he had wanted to understand slowly die. She didn't blame him. This was the path she had chosen. Akane could only cry helplessly. Ayato was deeply regretful because he wasn't strong enough. Both his conscious and subconscious wanted to save her. But unfortunately, he just wasn't strong enough. At the council meeting of the senior members, Arthur gave the following explanation. The last time the sacred gate opened, it merged the three realms together, throwing the entire world into chaos. That happened because everyone only cared about themselves and their own world. A council member questioned what Arthur would do next, and he simply promised to prevent any more tragedies like the Blue Christmas from ever happening again. The academy was created so Arthur could gather the most talented knight-errants to assist him on his journey to the sacred gate. The senior members would not interfere but warned Arthur that the greater the power, the higher the cost. Loki and Oz also watched the meeting from outside. Upon returning to the academy, Arthur gathered the members once more. He shared his plan and asked for their support. Of course, they all agreed to follow him. One member asked what Arthur intended to do once he reached the sacred gate. Arthur said he would return this world to its true nature. The sacred gate would grant a power to anyone who passed through it, a power capable of reshaping the world. He would use that power to do what must be done. Since he couldn't reach the gate alone, he had gathered all these talented individuals to help him get there. After the meeting, Biru came to see Ayato's group. All three were racing again, with Midori once again finishing first. Biru came to tell them Arthur wanted to see them. He also mentioned the sacred gate and how the wishes of the three were about to come true. After Midori and Akane left, the boy appeared again to meet Ayato. He asked if Ayato had figured out what his wish was. Ayato wasn't sure whether the wish was real, but at the very least, it was better than doing nothing. The boy was happy that Ayato had changed and warned that the path he was about to walk would likely be filled with pain. Finally, he asked Ayato whether he wanted to change the past or the future. Before Ayato could answer, he went to see Arthur. Arthur got straight to the point. He invited all three to join the journey to the sacred gate. Besides them, Jinji's team and a few other members from the academy would also be going. Arthur would become the king of this world. Once he ruled it, his friend would bring happiness to everyone in the world. Midori wondered who that friend was. Turns out, it was Santa Claus. It sounded like nonsense, but Arthur firmly believed that Santa Claus existed just like the sacred gate did. Meanwhile, Oz still had doubts about Arthur's decisions. On the other hand, Loki, with his playful attitude, trusted Arthur completely. He had met Arthur when he was a child. When Arthur found out Loki was a god, he was thrilled. But when Loki asked if he wanted to become a god, Arthur shook his head. He'd rather be a king. The world at that time was in the middle of war, probably because the current king was terrible. If Arthur could become king, he would bring peace to the world. Loki had been moved ever since then and decided to serve Arthur, because the role of a god is to serve the king. As for Oz, he had already gone outside and, along with 4 drivers, used 4 weapons to shoot straight into the sky. Ayato's group then went outside to think about whether they should follow Arthur or not. They worried the sacred gate might only grant a wish to the first person who reached it, not just anyone who passed through. However, the spirits were confident the wish would be granted to anyone who reached it. Hearing that, Akane and Midori decided to go. Ayato was still hesitant, but the water spirit managed to persuade him. After that, everyone gathered at the academy, and Arthur introduced Oz and Loki to everyone. Oz came from the dragon realm, while Loki was from the divine realm. When Akane looked at Oz, he didn't seem very legit, while Loki had apparently made some sort of deal with Jinji beforehand. After the gathering, everyone had their own personal issues to deal with. Ayato met the boy again. He was very proud of Ayato. In the past, Ayato just wanted to be like a shadow, always hiding and unnoticed. But now he wished he could decide for himself what he should do. Being indifferent like before was no longer an option. At that moment, the water spirit came to see Ayato again, and when Ayato called her by name, she was very happy that he had finally opened his heart to her. Setting that aside, she said Arthur wanted to meet him privately. As soon as Ayato stepped in, Arthur confessed that he had lied. He wanted to return the world to the time when Santa Claus could still bring happiness to people, because he only wanted to repay Santa Claus. When Arthur had lost everything, it was Santa who gave him a new beginning. At first glance, it looked like he was wishing for something for himself, but that wasn't the case. The reason he told Ayato this was because he sympathized with him. Ayato had sacrificed himself to protect something important to him. He always protected his younger brother by taking all the blame onto himself. People become stronger when they have something important to protect. Perhaps that is our kindred companion. Back when Arthur was a child, he was always very lonely. He was born in the human realm but had no one to raise him. He always felt like he alone existed in a vast world. Then the sacred gate appeared, and out of curiosity, young Arthur stepped through and was brought to a beautiful area called the Celestial Realm. But the emptiness in his heart remained. Then a boy appeared. The boy was surprised to learn that Arthur was human, that he had been abandoned, and coincidentally, that day was Christmas, so the boy decided to give Arthur a gift. Arthur asked who he was, and the boy introduced himself as Santa Claus. Santa then brought Arthur to his home to join a party, and the two of them met Santa's younger sister, Lisa. From that point on, the three became close friends. Returning to the present, after Ayato left, Loki came to find Arthur. They exchanged a few words, and then Loki asked Arthur to reveal his true reason for wanting to reach the sacred gate. Arthur whispered it to Loki, and the trickster god's expression looked quite pleased. Arthur then gathered everyone and shouted the departure command. Everyone assembled at the top of the academy to listen to Arthur's speech. Arthur's goal was to completely destroy the sacred gate. All the pain in the world stemmed from that gate. It created the three realms, brought chaos to the world, created a world that only rulers could understand, and concealed the dirty secrets of the cities. He believed that the current peace was nothing more than a facade. That's why Arthur had decided to return the world to its true nature, back to the time before it was altered. After that, the area was reconstructed, and a gate appeared, which Arthur opened. Upon entering, they found themselves in a completely different space. This path would lead them to the sacred gate, but before reaching it, they would have to pass through many other gates. As they stepped through the first gate, a palace appeared before them. Halfway through, Arthur immediately ordered everyone into combat mode. A swarm of drivers appeared automatically, and the one behind it was none other than Loki. Everyone then fought together as they moved into the palace. Awaiting them were the northern gods, who ruled the human realm from above. Arthur's team was fairly certain they couldn't defeat a god, so their mission was to stall them. Arthur and Ayato's group continued to advance. Along the way, Jinji's team was separated by a fire-wielding god. A girl from Arthur's team tried to stop him, but she dropped her weapon and was attacked. Pelu barely managed to rescue her and brought her to Arthur. Jinji's group also entered a different gate. Sadly, the girl did not survive her serious injuries. Pushing past the grief, Arthur urged the team to keep moving. Arthur's team was no longer just stalling, but was sacrificing their lives for time, with each member falling one by one. Biru and Triss were separated when they crossed through the gate. Oz, who was outside, was very worried but couldn't intervene. Amid this desperate struggle, a young man named Lance caught his attention. He still had a debt to settle with Arthur, so he couldn't fall here. Previously, Arthur had encountered Lance while he was punching someone. At that time, Arthur declared himself as king and defeated him, because a human could not defeat their king. Arthur believed that a king existed because of the trust of their people, and the people received trust from their king. If a king were betrayed by his own people, then it would be the people's turn to betray the king. Arthur was determined to kill the gods and become king, to prove that if a king could be killed by his own people, then the opposite should also be true. That's why he invited Lance into the team, with the sole purpose that Lance would kill Arthur himself. Therefore, Lance had no reason to fall in front of a god. On Arthur's side, he met Triss, who only managed to report the situation before collapsing unconscious. Midori was horrified by the many sacrifices, while Arthur silently acknowledged that it was all his fault, a burden he had to bear. The group continued moving, determined not to let down the trust placed in them. Meanwhile, Loki had returned to his laboratory to prepare a special gift for Arthur. Back inside the gate, everyone had collapsed, and only Lance and Beru remained, barely hanging on. The gods, however, were untouched. Lance anticipated facing all 6 gods, but when he went to find the scales, the gods had already left, as their pact had ended. Knowing Arthur was approaching the sacred gate, Lance was thrilled, but the gods warned him that this was a mistake. On Arthur's side, he destroyed one gate to keep moving. Once they passed through the gravity field, they would reach the sacred gate. When Arthur touched and opened the gate, unexpectedly, a driver pulled him inside. This was a special driver that possessed all 4 elements, and Arthur struggled greatly before managing to defeat it. Just as he was about to rest, Loki appeared, holding a sword and slowly approaching Arthur. Loki relayed Arthur's words. Every choice had its own consequences, but this time, the consequences were quite severe. Loki still gave Arthur 2 choices. First, take the sword and become his king, or second, leave your life here. Outside, Ayato's team was struggling to figure out how to open the gate. Shortly after, Lance arrived. After hearing the situation, Lance decided to trust Arthur because he wasn't someone who would die so easily. As soon as he spoke, the gate opened. Arthur took Loki's sword, and Lance thought they had succeeded. But to his surprise, Arthur stabbed him. Loki appeared behind Arthur, and the gate began to close, with the ground collapsing around them, causing Ayato's group to sink deep into the earth. On the surface, a tower began to rise. A long time ago, a prideful man built a tower that reached the sky, the place where the gods resided. At that time, the gods imposed a punishment to teach humanity the importance of knowing their place. And now, the gods' territory, the sacred gate, was once again being eyed by someone else. This was also Arthur's way of punishing himself opposing the infamous gods. As a human, the king had sunk into darkness right before the threshold of the sacred gate. Inside, Arthur met Loki again. Loki came, partly to remind Arthur of the pointless sacrifices of his comrades, and also to gradually break Arthur's will, making it easier for Loki to control him. Meanwhile, the city had enforced a curfew, banning people from leaving their homes without an urgent reason. The city claimed it was due to a system error to avoid alarming the citizens, but in reality, things were much worse. Oz had been summoned by the High Council members for interrogation. Oz believed that Arthur's plan to destroy the Sacred Gate was a coup against the Council, so he decided to punish Arthur on their behalf. However, Oz's decision to call upon the Northern Gods was not accepted by the Council. Oz argued that it was because Loki was also involved that he dared to call upon them. The Council had become impatient with Oz and wanted to summon Loki for questioning. Just as they mentioned his name, Loki appeared. He confirmed that Arthur's rebellion was true, and that he had taken care of Arthur and eliminated all of his allies. After the meeting, Oz confronted Loki about the deaths of everyone involved. Loki, whether truthful or not, remarked that since both of them were in the same boat, he placed the blame on Oz for calling the Northern Gods, which had led to the deaths. Oz was in despair, as the original plan between them was not meant to go this way. As for the adventurers, since they were connected to Arthur, they needed to hide for a while. The spirits were secretly meeting them. The spirits reported that the council had not made any moves yet, but was cautious of the adventurers. The water spirit managed to sneak in some medicine and clothes for them before leaving to avoid suspicion. When the spirits left, it was revealed that the place where Ayato's group was hiding was actually Santa Claus' house. Reviewing the current situation, the council still hadn't made a move. Jinji believed that Arthur's killing of Lance was an act of betrayal. Midori and Akane were certain that Arthur wasn't responsible, and that it must have been either Uchiha or Loki who controlled him. Jinji was grateful that Santa Claus saved his team, but the fact that Santa was friends with a traitor made it difficult for Jinji to trust him. Santa then asked Gingy if he knew why he was there when his group was in danger. It was because he had promised Arthur to save the children. On Loki's side, he went to the laboratory and instructed everyone to prepare because a great tragedy was about to occur. This time, Loki even invited the author of the tragedy, the poet of Avon, Shakespeare, to join in. Meanwhile, Oz was still agonizing over the fact that he had indirectly caused the deaths of many children. Someone came to bring him water and recognized Midori. Later that night, Santa Claus shared with Ayato's group the truth about the Blue Christmas, which the council had kept secret. He also revealed information about Akane's father's death and where Midori's friend was staying. The council also kept these secrets. Everyone was very upset upon hearing this. Santa Claus didn't know much, but he knew that Loki had helped the council cover up these events. After the Blue Christmas incident, Santa secretly monitored Loki. The trickster god had manipulated the council, and Santa believed his motive was to open the sacred gate and recreate the world. Loki would gain no benefit from doing this, but the essence of a god remained. He liked seeing everyone fight over the sacred gate. Santa's mistake was telling Arthur the truth, so now he had decided to risk everything to destroy the sacred gate. Santa had made plans to rescue Arthur, but on his own, he couldn't accomplish much, so he needed the help of the younger generation. This was essentially sending them to their deaths. However, Santa believed that Arthur had a reason for choosing this group, and there was logic behind it. That night, Ayato was deep in thought when the boy appeared again, pointing out Ayato's flaws. Ayato had been indecisive in his thoughts and hadn't made any decisions. The boy asked him once more whether he wanted to change the future or the past. Ayato reflected that he didn't want to change either. When the boy disappeared, Gingy came to see Ayato, and once the group gathered, Gingy's team decided to return to the academy. They still believed Arthur was a traitor and didn't trust Santa Claus' words. Gingy wanted to confirm a few things before deciding. In contrast, Akane chose to return to the sacred gate. Apart from wanting to know the truth behind his father's death, he wanted to save Arthur and prevent the deaths of everyone from being in vain. Of course, Ayato and Midori decided to go with Akane. So, the two groups parted ways. Back at the academy, Gingy's group was interrogated. They had accused others of betrayal, but had betrayed Ayato's location to Loki. However, when they arrived, it wasn't there. In fact, Santa had planned ahead. He had used a spell to confuse their memories, playing them a trick. But Gingy still hadn't given up. When they returned to the academy, this guy spread false news to the spirits, claiming that Otto's group had been discovered by Loki, and that the spirits needed to rescue them. The spirits believed this and rushed to check, which exposed their location. Immediately, a zone was created, and outside the building, a series of drivers were waiting for Ayato's group. Santa Claus advised them to return to the academy to avoid getting him involved, but of course, they refused. Once you've committed to something, you must follow through, so all three of them decided to stay and help Santa. However, Santa insisted he would handle things himself. He took out a baseball bat and went outside to fight. When he swung the bat, an explosion occurred. Meanwhile, Ayato's group had escaped through a hidden underground tunnel. Suddenly, they were transported and separated from the spirits. It was Loki who had asked Shakespeare to continue the story, and Ayato's group was now in another world. They had to run away from the drivers while being mocked by Loki. A black hole appeared, causing all three of them to fall into a trap. Now, they were on a stage. Akane tried to leave, but was blocked by an illusory wall. Loki asked Shakespeare to prepare a few plays for him to entertain Ayato's group. Immediately, Shakespeare conjured up Hamlet, Macbeth, and Othello stars of his theater group. Loki wanted Shakespeare to add a little more breakthrough, and as Shakespeare started writing, the first play was about a girl with a burning heart named Akane. The second play was about someone who tried to assassinate a king but failed and was caught Midori. The last one was a male version of Cinderella, Ayato, handsome but miserable. Shakespeare became more and more excited as he wrote. Akane was forced to perform, which made everyone laugh uncontrollably. Then Othello appeared in the role of the father. He sold Achaene to a group of nobles, and whenever she failed to please them, she was trampled upon. Midori was still in prison, awaiting execution, while Ayato, sick, could do nothing. Back to Achaene, one day she received a letter that changed her life. An invitation to a banquet where the prince would choose his wife. Achaene was both happy and sad, because she, with her tattered clothes, had no proper attire for the banquet. Then Othello appeared as the wizard. Loki found this part boring and wanted Shakespeare to think of something better. While she was contemplating, the lights on the stage suddenly went out, and a familiar voice came from the wizard. He said he was glad to meet his son again. The scene shifted to the banquet, and while dancing, Achaene realized the person was her father. Meanwhile, Midori had escaped the prison and returned to meet her dear friend. Seizing the moment while Shakespeare and Loki were conversing, Achaene's father pulled her away. Shakespeare then came up with a new play. In it, Achaene would be in Othello's arms, Midori would escape with Macbeth, and Ayato would hold hands with Hamlet. In the end, all of them would die. In Ayato's scene, the last leaf was about to fall. As Ayato lay dying, several images of his family flashed before him. Suddenly, his illness vanished. He jumped out of bed and ran off. As for Achaene, his father had brought her to a place where Loki could not intervene. The first thing Achaene did when meeting his father was not to hug him, but to punch him in frustration. He blamed him for faking his death, which caused his mother much pain. He could only apologize, and then he wanted to play catch with him, just like they used to. Meanwhile, as Midori was running, she heard her dear friend calling her and turned back to the past. This time, Midori chased after and caught up with her friend. They were both overjoyed to meet again. Midori promised not to leave her friend again. They then went together to the summer festival once more. Finally, Ayato returned to his old house, where his younger brother appeared. His younger brother started to show regret for leaving back then. He apologized for not stopping their parents from abusing Ayato and wished he could go back to help him. Ayato began to feel something was wrong. The younger brother he had seen before wasn't like this. He had been cold and indifferent and used to look down on him. Now, he was speaking sweet words, and Ayato immediately realized this was still part of a play. On Achaene's side, while playing catch with his father, he kept talking about how much he regretted abandoning both himself and his mother and how his dream was to live happily with both of them. Achaene realized that the man in front of him was not the father he admired. He wasn't the type to give up on his dreams like that. The play had failed, and Achaene's father was actually Othello. As for Ayato, he was Hamlet. Finally, Midori realized that the friend in front of her was a fake. When she asked about the friendship keychain they both shared, the friend didn't know anything about it, revealing that this was Macbeth. All three had failed their missions. Shakespeare was surprised by this outcome, but Loki saw no issue with it. He believed that it wasn't the actors who made a great play, but the characters themselves who created the story. The play temporarily ended here, and Loki told Shakespeare to rest for a while before preparing the next play. Ayato's group was once again transported to a different space. This time, Ayato was brought to the previous battlefield. A young boy appeared and urged Ayato to leave before the northern gods arrived. Meanwhile, Achaene arrived in a place surrounded by many tanks. After walking for a while, the drivers appeared to chase him. When cornered, a burst of fire swept through and blew away the drivers. Another father figure appeared. Of course, after everything that had happened, Achaene didn't believe this was his real father. Seeing this, the father figure showed off a few moves to him, even revealing secrets like how Achaene used to be scared of the dark and cry a lot when he was little. Hearing this, Achaene began to slightly believe. He advised him to return soon and said he would negotiate with the council. Upon realizing his father was involved with the council, Achaene questioned him. His father admitted that the council had dealt with Arthur and his team, and he himself had been involved in it. He explained that the world had changed because of Divine Gate, and many lives had been lost because of it. However, humans could no longer maintain balance without Divine Gate. His team had been researching Divine Gate to understand it. The drivers Akane used and the zone creation ability all came from this research. Killing the drivers to save more people was the right thing to do. The image of Akane's great father completely vanished. Two opposing ideologies began to clash. Meanwhile, Midori was brought to a ruin. As she walked, she heard an explosion nearby and went to check it out. By chance, she encountered her old friend, who was very happy to see Midori, but Midori was now very cautious about being tricked. Seeing this, her friend exchanged a few martial arts moves with Midori. The spirits had appeared outside the tower, sensing Ayato's group and moving inside. Loki then appeared in Arthur's mind and showed him the entire progression. Loki said that if the children succeeded, there would still be the northern gods to stop them. Arthur laughed, saying that if that happened, Loki's plan would fail. Loki didn't mind, though. He planned to use Ayato's group to reset the world. However, right now, only one of them held the key to the gate, and the other two would have to experience a feeling called despair to obtain the key. As for their friend, the one with the sick lungs, the council had summoned him. They didn't question him. Instead, they said that they no longer trusted Loki and that Oz was useless. Their only hope was now Jinji. The council explained that both the celestial and demon worlds were making separate moves. Right now, only Jinji could reach Divine Gate, because his friends would no longer accompany him. Hikari had already been taken back by the celestial world's people, and Yukari had been found by the demon world's people. Santa Claus seemed to have found what he needed, but a god had found him first. Back to Midori, after showing a few moves, her friend took out the friendship keychain. Only now did Midori recognize her. However, this friend had changed. She had thought a lot about Midori's past words and now had new teammates. She even had a new name, Dorothy. Still, Midori felt regret for what she had said back then. Dorothy quickly reassured her. While the two were talking, a northern god arrived. Midori told Dorothy to leave because this was her own challenge. She then ran off to lure the god after her. Same on Akane's side. A god intervened in the battle between Akane and his father. Akane's father ordered the drivers to pull Akane away, and he continued using the remaining driver to form a giant arm, which he used to grab the god. After a few attempts to dodge, the god was captured. However, this wasn't enough to defeat a god. The god broke the arm and lunged at Akane's father, stabbing him. Father then embraced the god and once again apologized to Akane and his mother before sacrificing himself along with the god. Meanwhile, Midori had been cornered. The god launched a spear toward her, but Dorothy jumped in to protect her and pushed her into a ravine. Dorothy perished in the process. Dorothy's teammates were none other than Oz, and both remaining children had experienced despair in order to obtain the key. As for Ayato, the boy led him to Divine Gate. The water spirit also arrived at his location, and it turned out that the water spirit had seen the boy a long time ago. The three of them continued on their way. After crossing the next gate, they were confronted by Ayato's troublesome little brother. Meanwhile, Akane and Midori were still in shock from the deaths of their loved ones when they encountered the boy. He told them that they were about to experience an even greater despair than what they had just gone through. After Ayato's little brother killed their parents, Ayato took the burden of his brother's guilt. All that was left in Ayato's heart was regret and despair. The boy invited both of them to Divine Gate with him. On Ayato's side, the two brothers shared a moment of reminiscing. In the past, their parents had been very strict with them. One time, when the younger brother had done something wrong, he was tied to a tree in the rain. Ayato could do nothing but apologize. On the contrary, when Ayato was tied up, the younger brother was deeply upset because he couldn't do anything. Eventually, Ayato did everything to protect his younger brother. He started deliberately opposing their parents, doing anything to make them angry. The younger brother soon realized how strong Ayato was. He knew that Ayato had seen Divine Gate when he was young, because only those strong enough and with enough willpower could bear to see the gate. One time, unable to bear it any longer, the younger brother set their house on fire. Of course, when their parents found out, Ayato took the blame for his younger brother. However, the younger brother thought that Ayato's actions only made him suffer more. Before he struck their parents, he had approached Ayato first. He had wanted to strike Ayato first, but stopped when he saw Ayato's lifeless gaze. He ran outside and saw Divine Gate. The younger brother believed that Ayato's lifeless gaze was a sign of him looking down on him. He thought Ayato was a hypocrite. Why didn't Ayato run away with him back then, and instead chose to bear all the guilt alone? The younger brother's unconscious darkness, full of confusion and entanglements, grew stronger, gradually overtaking the innocent consciousness that once admired his older brother, transforming that admiration into darkness. The reason Ayato didn't choose to leave was because he believed that one day they would both return to warm the family they belonged to. Ayato's parents had always loved both brothers. It was just that their method of raising them was too strict. Their mother often checked on Ayato, and so he always longed for a happy family. However, the younger brother could not accept this fake family. When words of failure were spoken, violence took its place. The younger brother summoned 2 swords and charged at Ayato with them, but Ayato still didn't want to hurt him. Ayato dodged and tried to convince his younger brother. The water spirit felt sympathy for Ayato when learning the truth. The boy appeared and told the water spirit that he had a way to help Ayato. Outside, the gods had gathered to eliminate Ayato, but Oz stood in their way. He deeply regretted Dorothy's death and would now stand against all the gods. Oz summoned a dragon that blew everyone back. Meanwhile, Ayato, unable to persuade his younger brother, reluctantly drew his sword to fight. However, he let his younger brother strike first and was soon cornered. Just as the younger brother was about to strike Ayato, the water spirit intervened and took the blow. As promised, the water spirit helped Ayato this time. The younger brother attempted to kill the water fairy, but Ayato, in a trance, unleashed a burst of power and attacked his younger brother. The younger brother, sensing the murderous intent from his older brother, felt joy. Having obtained what he wanted, he left, telling Ayato that they would meet again for another battle. The spirits and Akane's group arrived, and the spirits told the water spirit to leave it to them. Their task was to pass through Divine Gate. When they entered the gate, they encountered the boy again, and this was the true form of Divine Gate. The boy revealed that he was the key to Divine Gate, and now all 3 only needed to step through it, and all their questions would be answered. Each of the 3 children had their own wish, and they advanced into the gate together. Meanwhile, Santa Claus had reached the top of the tower to find Arthur. Loki attacked first, but was countered by Noel. He was determined to take back Arthur's freedom, which had been stolen by Loki. While fighting Loki, Noel managed to approach Arthur and was stabbed by him. But this was Noel's plan all along. He used his power to enter Arthur's mind. Noel brought the remaining piece of the crown to Arthur, but Arthur decided to bear the burden on his own. He pulled the sword out of Noel's body and returned him to the present. Loki had placed the crown on Arthur. As for Ayato's group, the key invited all 3 of them to step up. They had the choice to either change the future by rewriting the past, or alter the past by changing the future. The decision was theirs. They had the power to choose their fate. Just as the 3 were about to advance, they were confronted by the gods. All of them had their drivers destroyed and were exhausted. Oz stood alone against all the gods. The gods refused to allow humans to defile Divine Gate. The key appeared and pushed the gods back. The gods believed that humans could not control the power to change fate. The order would collapse, and the world would be submerged in chaos. The key refuted this, stating that if gods themselves could make mistakes, then humans had the right to choose their own fate. However, the gods had taken away their freedom. The gods argued that they had given humans life. The key told Ayato's group to go ahead, as it would handle things here. The key transformed into a giant, stating that even though humans were not its allies, neither were the gods. Therefore, humans should be allowed to decide their own fate. Everyone here had made up their minds, and their true emotions had brought them this far. Some had endured great pain, only to realize that this world did not need gods. Others had spent their time searching for their father, only to meet him and then have the gods take him away. And some only sought to find their best friend, never stopping their pursuit. All of them harbored hatred for the gods and stood united against what they considered the highest authority. Humans were not strong, but they desired with all their hearts, and that was why the key was on their side. It pushed the gods out of Divine Gate, and now no one could stop them. A staircase appeared, and they only needed to step up to reach their goal. At that moment, the troublesome little brother appeared. Jinji believed that Divine Gate was not meant for personal use. The rulers of the world should use the gate to govern the world. If Ayato's group passed through, the council would disappear along with the order of the world. This world was inherently unfair, and no matter how righteous one lived, it still went in an unpredictable direction. No matter how hard one worked, it would still be impossible to achieve everything. In the end, only those chosen would rule the world. But that was exactly why they needed the council to keep the chaos of the world normal. The key responded, saying that this was exactly why they sought to change it. Of course, the reconstruction was not only about fulfilling desires, it could also destroy the world that the gods had created. Ayato's group could control the world as they wished and become like gods themselves. However, there were some things to consider. Everything would be exactly as they wished, and they could rule the world. Ayato believed that most wishes never came true, which is why he had lived a life where he gave up everything. But Arthur had once said that people become stronger when they have something more important than themselves. Ayato had changed after meeting his friends, and now he believed that what he wanted to do was more important than his past wishes. Even if humans depend on the power of gods, they will not change. It is up to humans to change themselves. Both Akane and Midori agreed with Ayato's view. Upon hearing this, Jinji also decided to leave, as it seemed to be what he wanted to hear. Ayato's group decided not to pass through Divine Gate. They would not change the world for their own benefit. Ayato also thanked the key for always being by his side and helping him. The key was pleased and left. As soon as Divine Gate disappeared, Loki appeared again. Unexpectedly, Arthur swung his sword and completely destroyed the tower, destroying the path leading to Divine Gate. Arthur left with Loki. Ayato's group and the spirits survived the collapse. To their surprise, Lance was still alive. He informed them that they had all been resurrected by someone's power. This time, they would leave, but next time, they would save Arthur. Jinji returned to report to the council. Hikari became the queen of the heavenly realm, and Yukari became the queen of the demon realm. Arthur's team trained Akane, and Midori handed Dorothy's remaining relic to Oz. Ayato spent time playing with the water fairy. The end credits rolled, and that was the end of the film. Goodbye.